So today we're going to talk with Luz Maria Puente about a project that she did in the Mexican financial sector in 2012, 2013, a project that lasted about a year. And the intention of this was to map the financial system of Mexico. It was supported by UNIFIM, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and the Institute for Strategic Clarity. And the idea of this project was initially that the Mexican financial system has some very large players in banking, insurance, regulators, in different forms of financing that some of the big players are doing very, very well, and there are a lot of smaller players that aren't. And can we have a healthier financial system for the end user and for the financial institution itself if we look at the whole and understand that better? And you, in this process, ended up interviewing 42 different people from think tanks, regulators, banking, insurance, users, all kinds of different perspectives on the whole system that we're looking at for the Mexican financial system. So a very complex project in Spanish. The materials that we'll be providing in the knowledge base are in Spanish, and all done, this was in Mexico, like I said, 2012, 2013. So could you describe a little bit the process that you went through? You were using at the time we were still calling it the Managing from Clarity or Strategic Clarity process, but it was a strategic systems mapping. And could you describe a little bit the process over this year of which you did?
First, it was very interesting to see who will be interviewing. Can we have a good representation? Can we map the whole system? And the idea is just by doing it, can we see in a single map all the players, from the very small microfinancing institutions to the insurance companies, to the universities, to the banks, to stockbrokers houses. Can we put all what is happening, all the consumers and the suppliers of financial systems with their products, and how do they interrelate? It was a very challenging thing. Once we start the interviews, we start getting a lot of materials, a lot of reading. The research part of the project was reading and getting into what is available. Pricewaterhouse assigned one person to help us research around the world in their projects if there was something close to what we were trying to do, and he couldn't find anything. He can find small pieces, but never was attempted to map the whole system, a whole system of a country. So it was very interesting. We had a lot of information, and it was, how do we start piecing together so we can have a good representation and start building a map of all these interactions? So it was challenging, and I learned a lot. Just trying to with the interviews, we always start with what is the system trying to accomplish, what we call it the global goal. And it was interesting to see. I would ask every interviewee, what do they think? What was the global goal of the financial system? And with different variations, many people were very focused on their own sector. But at the end, it was, can the system provide a good structure for an economic growth for Mexico City? So after that is if that is true, if we can have a structure that can support the growth of the economy, how all those pieces come together to be able to support that, or can we do better? And the idea of understanding what, in terms of system thinking, what do we mean by structure? And what we come up is the system is done, and it was evolving from different pieces, and we start from a simpler financial system, and it start growing and getting more complex and complex as more elements come to be part of this system. So the idea of understanding what is the structure, the actual structure of the system, if that is helping us accomplish the goal. And can we have a better structure? So before we can answer, can we have a better structure? The idea of mapping is, let's see what is the current structure that we are dealing with.
So how was it that you started to organize from the beginning in this of who was to be included and whatnot? Because we typically start the processes from what is the global goal, and then what are the factors that influence those dynamics, and
So
so deciding who to include. Yeah.
We start identifying who are the main players, who are the stakeholders in the system. With that, once we understand who were the stakeholders, that's how okay, so who do we know that can represent each stakeholder? So the interviews goes into each stakeholder, more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that can represent that stakeholder. Once we have those interviews, I start understanding what was the information that I was given for each stakeholder.
Right. So typically with our process, we have said that we're trying to map the global goal or the problem and not mapping a system. Here to say, instead of trying to say we're going to try to map a whole system and in all the levels, you were looking at, well, we know the goal is healthier Mexican health financial system, and who are the key stakeholders that we know influence that, and what perspective can we start to get on the whole and the goal by starting to do these interviews?
Yes, that was the idea of, can we, through the interviews, can we have that representation? Can we start understanding what are the products and services that each financial institution is providing? How do they interrelate to each other? And that was the beginning of the building of the map.
And once you had the interviews done, then what happened in the process?
We start understanding how does the economy rely on the financial system to move? How does the financial system support that growth? So understanding the economic cycle was one of the ideas. Let's start seeing where and how does the financial system intervenes in the economic cycle to be able to support it. With that, once we went back and forth trying to understand if we are having a good representation of the economic cycle and how the different types of institutions support that economic cycle. That was the beginning. Try to understand that the economic cycle and the institutions affecting the economic cycle. And the regulators, are the regulators supporting that action?
And once you had the complete, what you felt like was a pretty complete map, and you started doing analysis, and then
we did many as the managing from Clarity, the system thinking tools help us address some of the dynamics in the system. As I said before, we are trying to understand the structure to see if we need to change the structure or what can we do to make the system work better. So with the tools and the analysis, help us address few of the dynamics that have some space to make it better. So understanding better, we start seeing like where does it hurt in the system? What are the pieces, like what are the main complaints of some of the players? So we start seeing the pain in the system, and what is causing the pain in the system is the structure. So can we change that structure? Can we do something better with that?
And then you started to validate what you were finding. You did a series of presentations to different groups to to see if they were buying into what you were seeing and understanding. And
Yeah, we start playing around with the tools. So we had a small presentation with the board of Unifim, if they can start seeing what we mean by structure, what we mean by the whole architecture of the financial system. And because the word structure is used in so many other contexts, what do we mean in system thinking by structure? So just because once we start putting all the elements together, we start seeing the structure of more than seeing, because you can see it, we can start feeling why are we designing that pain. But of course, it was not on purpose, but we were not aware that whatever we are doing with the system is affecting many parts of the system. So many times when we're trying to address one problem, we solve one problem, but we are seeing that solution might provoke another pain in the system, what we call unintended consequences of those actions.
so you were able to go over that with the board of Unifim, the folks that were working with you from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and you started to also have meetings with the regulators, and there were some other validation exercises that you did with stakeholders from the broader community.
Yeah. Yes, I presented to different regulators. So because it was just about to start the restructuring of the financial system, and can we start seeing some of the ideas, some of the actions that were proposed? Can we walk those actions in the map and see that they are good changes to promote what we wanted, and in some instances were provoking what we wanted, but again, sometimes will create unintended consequences that might counteract those actions that we want to have, or the changes that we want to create in the system.
Excellent. So you're getting into my next question is, what are some of the other key insights that you see came from the process for you and for others that were participating in this? Because what we didn't say so far is you have a long history in the Mexican financial system, having been a banker before and worked in banking for many years. So insights for you and others that were participating in this process with you, what would you see some of the other key insights?
I see the financial institutions seeing the regulator as I would say enemies. Let's use one word, because the regulators are trying to do their work, their job, trying to have some of those rules so the financial system works in an orderly manner, and the financial system see themselves as trying to do the job of satisfying their stakeholders, satisfying their clients, give or provide financial financial products and financial products to satisfy the demand of the customers. And sometimes they see each other as enemies. And one of the things, once you start seeing the system outside of your own skin and try to have a higher level of that view, is we can start working together, because at the end, all of us, what we want is a really good structure to create that economic growth. So instead of saying, let's not start fighting each other, but how can we work better together to create something that both of us want? So it was start seeing how the players can do better if they see the role as part of a bigger system. So I'm not just a regulator. I'm here to regulate. I'm not here in a financial institution just to provide products and systems and services. We are here to help our country to create more economic growth. So to me, that was not so obvious once we started, because we don't see ourselves as part of the system. Everybody's seeing themselves as a single entity, and everybody is looking for the good of each entity. But once we start seeing each other more system, then we can produce, or we can generate different answers.
Excellent. What do you see as, or what did you see at the time as potential impacts? What did you see at the time as potential impacts from this work?
At that time, I love one of the big regulators said, this work is not only very important, but it's very relevant. So this is a system that he said, we need to take this to the president. We need for the financial institutions to see what happened in the whole system. So the possible impacts that we could have done was a lot of, I thought it could be a resource for others to start seeing how they policy. We did not get to that point, but almost at the frontier of that possibility.
Excellent. Is there anything else that happened during this process, or insights for you during the process that you want to share in the last couple of minutes?
I think now that I see it in retrospect, I think I wish I hear when you said we need to have this people that own the product, that will be able to take it to different places. Unifin was great, PwC were great, but the three of us couldn't quite move it far enough to the places where I thought we could have done. So if I have to do it again, I will be very attentive to have that group that can hold the project and can move it to different levels where it will produce better results, or it can be used as this tool for thinking and seeing where are the possible policies that we need to implement.
Wonderful. This was a big investment of your time and energy for an industry that you know well, and an impact on Mexico that you deeply care for. And yeah, so, and it was a great analysis and good validation too, right? To have in the process a lot of these key stakeholders saying what they're getting out of working with it and how it's useful to them. So that's a great project. Thank you, Luzma.
Thank you very much.